Tonight is the draft in Dallas, so let's do another draft video. And I want to discuss recent drafts, recent going back to 2003. Oh, look at that. It must have wiped off when I was moving it. All right. Close enough. You guys can read it. And if you can't, I'll talk to you about it. Looking at drafts, and I don't want to look at last year's draft because it's too early, but we can look at 2 years ago and already say there's some moves here that, man, if you could do it again. Everybody asks me, like, can you do a redraft? Maybe this summer I'll get into doing redrafts, but there's so many sites doing redraft, and there's so many places doing redrafts. And I don't know that I would necessarily redraft any differently than anybody else. But if you look at 2016, Pierre-Luc Dubois against Jesse Puljujarvi is on the board because I freaked out. I was like, Puljujarvi drops to the Oilers. What are Columbus thinking? Columbus was thinking we're getting a first-line center, and they were right. At this stage of the game, it looks like drafting Dubois ahead of Puljujarvi was the right move. Then the Canucks went and drafted Olli Juolevi, which caused me to kind of lose my mind. And when you look at the fact that Matt Tkachuk's behind him, you can make an argument before or against Matt Tkachuk. It's the guy behind him, Clayton Keller. Keller's the one that if the Canucks had drafted him would already be on the Canucks, and we would be talking about Besser, Horvat, Keller, and what else they could add to this roster. Pettersson coming in. Man, that would have been great. But anyways, I still have high hopes for you, Levy, but at this stage of the game, Keller looks like a steal. And the biggest steal of that first round was number 14, Charlie McAvoy. The 2015 draft, it is the Arizona Coyotes that make the pick that you can argue one way or the other about in Dylan Strome. Because at 4, you got Mitch Marner. Marner's been great, but at 5, you've got Noah Hanifin. What is it that Toronto's looking for right now? A top 4 or top 2 defenseman to help out Morgan Rielly and take some of that pressure off a guy like Jake Gardiner. Noah Hanifin would look pretty nice in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey right now, and I was kind of surprised at the time they took Marner. And it's okay. It's fine. Marner's been a pretty darn good player, and he's my favorite Leaf, but still. And then you've got Zacha at 7 and Zacha at 6 and Provorov at 7. If New Jersey had drafted Provorov, how much better is that blue line for them? How much better would the team be right now? And I'm not saying that to throw any shade at Pavel Zacha. Zacha may still turn out to be a decent guy, but Provorov's kind of what they need right now. And of course, you want steals. At 16, you got Barzal. 17, you got Kyle Connor. And at 23, Brock Besser. 2014, Sam Reinhart is drafted at 2. Bennett was drafted at 4. Reinhart was drafted at 2. Leon Draisaitl at 3. And you can argue, if you want, that Buffalo's Sam Reinhart had a good second half of the season, and you'd be right. He did have a pretty decent second half of the season. And Draisaitl had a bit of a down year for Edmonton. But I would still argue that Draisaitl's the better player. William Nylander at 8 was a steal because he dropped. He wasn't supposed to go at 8. He was supposed to go before that. Ehlers at 9 and David Pastrnak at 25. Quite a steal on that one. 2013, the draft's pretty solid. The only change that you might make, if Tampa had drafted Seth Jones instead of Jonathan Drouin, on the one side, they wouldn't have Sergachev, who they picked up from Montreal recently, but recently as in last summer. But if Seth Jones was on that Tampa blue line with Victor Hedman against the Capitals, could things have turned out differently? 2012, of course, fail for Nail, right? Fans remember fail for Nail 6 years ago. Yeah, the Oilers they're falling to the bottom because they want Nail Yakupov, and fail for Nail's part of the reason why we got a draft lottery. And Nail Yakupov kind of was a fail. His first year was pretty good, and then after that, it's kind of been a mismatch. Ryan Murray at 2, Alex Galchenyuk at 3, Griffin Reinhart at 4, Morgan Rielly at 5. That's a weak top 5. Morgan Rielly might be the best of the bunch, unless Galchenyuk gets his career back on track with Arizona this year. 2011, Ryan Strome and Mika Zibanejad went ahead of Mark Scheifele and Sean Couturier. I remember watching that draft, and I could not for the life of me understand why Sean Couturier was dropping. I remember thinking that Philly, who had missed the playoffs after being in them forever, getting Couturier at 8, I thought that's a gift for a team that doesn't usually miss the playoffs. That's fantastic. And while Couturier offensively took until this past season to really become that player, he's been a key part of that team. And honestly, wouldn't Ottawa or the Islanders love to have Sean Couturier in their lineup? I'm not saying anything bad about Mika Zibanejad, but between the two, I would pick Couturier. And of course, at 30 that year, Anaheim walked out with Rickard Rakell. Rickard Rakell has been fantastic. There were a number of votes for him as underrated forward. At the end of the day, though, it didn't go to Rakell, but he is kind of an excellent 30-goal scorer. 2010, Eric Goodbranson at 3 and Ryan Johansson at 4. Would Florida have rather had Johansson looking back? Yeah, kind of. At 16, Vlad Tarasenko, and at 26, Evgeny Kuznetsov. Both Tarasenko and Kuznetsov, it was kind of known what they were, but due to KHL concerns and just overall Russian concerns, Russian players wouldn't come over right away. It might take a few years. Teams passed on them for more immediate results. Washington looks brilliant, don't they, for doing this? For, I think it was 3 years, we were waiting for Kuznetsov, and then it's been a brilliant move for Washington overall. He's proven himself to be worth a contract that at the time he signed it, I said that I thought was too much money. And hey, it's worked out really well for them. And I think Florida would have drafted Kuznetsov if we go back and do it all over again. 2009, interesting draft here. Scott Glennie went to Dallas. Jared Cowan goes to Ottawa. Magnus Pajärvi goes to Edmonton. And Pajärvi was a pretty well thought of prospect, so him dropping to 10 was kind of a boon for Edmonton at the time. And yet at number 11, that's Ryan Ellis, boys and girls. Nashville knows how to draft defensemen. Very smart when it comes to drafting defensemen. And Kyle Palmieri at 26, that's a bit of a steal. 2008, Zach Bogosian at 3. Alex Pietrangelo at 4. I would think that Atlanta, now Winnipeg, would rather have Pietrangelo in their lineup than Bogosian, who I know they've moved out. I know he's gone to Buffalo. I know they got something back. I'm just saying Alex Pietrangelo would look pretty nice in a Jets jersey. Erik Karlsson was drafted at 15 and John Carlson drafted at 27. So this was the season of where did the defensemen go, and the wrong ones went in the wrong order. Because as good as Pietrangelo would look, I would think Erik Karlsson would be the most liked of those four. If you could redraft, would you draft Pietrangelo or would you draft Karlsson? I would draft Karlsson, personally. But there are some that might pick Alex. Anyways, that was quite the draft. And I thought that was key because today we've got 4 different defensemen who are up and which one's going to get drafted first. And I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. Some drafts have Dobson first. Some have Boqvist first, although Boqvist seems to be slipping. If he slips to Vancouver, I kind of hope they grab him because I think he's being underrated. 2007, though, the LA Kings went way off the board with Thomas Hickey. I remember when Thomas Hickey was announced that the TSN announcers kind of went, what? The Kings are drafting Hickey? But he'd be available later. He might slip into the second round. Why are they drafting him 4th overall? So Carl Alsner drops to 5th to Washington. And then Gagne was picked number 6 by Edmonton, which seemed like a good move until you look at the career of Jakub Voracek, a guy who Columbus has had, and, well, we know he's not in Columbus anymore. 2006, the only thing I could see that really seemed egregious to me is Claude Giroux at 22. Famously, Bobby Clark stands up there and he's like, I don't know how to pronounce this kid's name. He pronounced it wrong, and you could tell he didn't care. He was PO'd because the guy he wanted wasn't on the board, so he was just like, yeah, whatever, I'll just draft this kid. Turned out to be a pretty good move. Maybe other GMs should try it. 2005, this was the Pierre Maguire meltdown. Benoit Pouliot gets drafted at 4. Montreal drafts Carey Price at 5 at a time when it's perceived they don't need a goaltender. So Pierre Maguire just goes off about this draft pick. Just how stupid this is and how dumb Montreal is and what a dumb idea. And Gilbert Brulé's right there, and Brulé would be perfect for what they need, and I think he mentioned other guys too. And yeah, it was quite the rant. And I remember thinking at the time, BPA. You're going to hear that term if you watch the draft today. Best player available. So when they say this team's looking for the BPA, that means they're smart. Always draft the best player available. If you draft by position, you may end up on a board like this later with somebody going, why didn't you draft that guy? Draft the best player. Whoever is the best player. Don't worry about position. Don't worry about your needs. That's why when Jim Benning comes out yesterday and says the Canucks might draft a forward, and everybody's like, Benning says they might draft a forward. Yeah, if Wallstrom's the best guy, when the Canucks pick at 7, you draft a forward. If they decide to trade down with the Islanders and they pick up Hayton and Veleno at 11 and 12, then they've drafted forwards. I don't care. Drafting best player available works almost every time, unless that best player turns out to be Nail Yakupov. At 11, you got Anze Kopitar, and 21, Tuukka Rask by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I know that's a bone of contention for Leaf fans. Why are you bringing that up? But he does stand out in this draft. He was a steal. He shouldn't have dropped that far down. 2004, the one steal I found was Corey Schneider at 27. So goalies did used to get drafted in the first round. It just doesn't happen anymore. I think it's just they're too far out, and I don't think there's been very many goaltenders available the last few years that you look at as surefire. This guy's a starter. He's going to be awesome. Closest you might get might be, I would say, Carter Hart, that was drafted by Philly, but he didn't go that high in the draft either. 2003, of course, famously, Nilsson gets drafted by the Islanders, and the Islanders get roasted for it. And the GM of the Islanders wasn't very happy with getting roasted for it publicly. At 16, Steve Bernier goes to San Jose. Had a decent career, but at 17, that's no. No, that wasn't Minnesota that drafted him. I'm going to go ahead and take this one and move it over. It's because Zach Parese's in Minnesota that I did that. No, Zach Parise was drafted by the New Jersey Devils at 17. I was looking at it, I'm like, no. So there's going to be comments in the comment section where people are like, you mixed up that Parise wasn't drafted by Minnesota. Yeah, I caught it after. Now, just as a curiosity thing, I looked through how many first rounders never played a game in the NHL. 2002, it was 4 of them. 2003, famously, it was none of them. 2004, it was 2 of them. 2005, 3 of them. 2006, 3 of them. 2007, 5 of them. 2008, 4 of them. 2009, 1. 2010, 0. 2011, 2. 2012, 0. 2013, 1. 2014, 2. And from 2015, so only 3 years ago, 4. So there's going to be more guys from that draft that haven't played yet that are going to get games. So that'll probably come down to 2. When you get drafted in the first round, you're going to be an NHLer. The risk of drafting somebody who's not an NHLer isn't really the issue. The question is who drafts the best NHLer. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Again, I apologize to New Jersey fans everywhere that I qualified Parise as being drafted by Minnesota and not drafted by New Jersey. And for Zach, I'm sorry you don't have a team anymore. I took that away from you. I'm very, very sorry. You'll have to pack your gear and get out. I don't know what else to tell you. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Today is going to be fun. This is just sort of a primer that we're going to see guys get picked that we're going to go, wait, what? Sometimes we're going to be right, and sometimes the team's going to be right. Thank you guys for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. There will be a live stream tonight during the first round of the draft. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.